Hey Vasu, how are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for coming on the show. You've yeah just come back from a trip recently, haven't you?
Yeah, so I was in mountain film, uh, and yeah, just tried to share my film that made with North Face last year. It was
Yeah.
great sharing about disability and how that impacts me as an athlete and how I view my athleticism.
And yeah, how was it at the event? How was the film received? And
Oh, people loved it. Yeah, I was. It's a short, so it's always tricky because it's piled on with other shorts. But yeah, people loved it and came up to me afterwards just to chat and get to know me a little bit
nice,
more. So yeah.
cool, man. Good
hmm
stuff. Well,
hmm
I'd love to kind of like, if it's okay with you, sort of to kind of jump back into like where it all started, even like sort of before skiing, before kind of any of the sports sort of took place. So because you were didn't you grow up in the US and then you kind of you went back to India
hmm Yeah, correct.
quite early on, right?
Yeah, so I was born in the States in Connecticut, and my leg was amputated around 9 months old from a blood infection that I contracted when I was younger. And then after the hospital, my family and I decided to move back to India to Ahmedabad, Gujarat, that's on the west side, and be around family a little bit more. So we decided to move and stayed there for about 5 years as I was growing up. And throughout that time, I was constantly like overgrowing my prosthetic leg that I was getting made in the US and breaking it or whatever. So constantly had to ship it back and forth. So finally, parents decided to move back to the States to have more access to medical equipment around when I was 7. So that's when we moved back to Connecticut.
Okay.
And yeah.
And so was it kind of it was mainly to get that medical treatment and then the you guys came back like as a family and
Yeah, I mean, it was more so to just have more access to prosthetic legs, and just because I was breaking them or outgrowing them, just wanted to have that quicker turnaround. It would take a
okay.
few weeks or so if I did something in India and we needed a part from the US, and so it was kind of a process. So we decided to make it a little bit easier and streamline and move to the States instead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And where did you guys move to?
We moved to Manchester, Connecticut, and then eventually to Glastonbury, Connecticut, where I pretty much spent most of my childhood and formative years.
Yeah.
hmm
And your older brother, I've had he was kind of like sort of trying to get you into sports, and
Yeah,
he
I mean,
was
I
sort
would
of
just
like
like
kind
kind
of
of I would mostly just follow him around more so than anything, and hanging out with neighborhood kids and just playing whatever sports we could imagine, from soccer to tag to skateboarding and biking around, or what, you name it. So it was just kind of just like a full neighborhood thing, and my brother was part of it, and I would just follow him around for the most part.
was there anything that sort of stood out that you particularly like, that you liked back then, would you say?
I
Or is
mean,
it like would you just do whatever you like wherever
yeah, it was
you
kind of
could
just
and
whatever to the most part, but definitely enjoyed playing soccer. That's definitely a world sport, and was doing a fair bit of that when we were in India too, with the neighborhood kids as well. And then picked up skateboarding and skiing at the same time when I was around 10.
okay.
Um, yeah, and that was more so watching TV and watching some of the more extreme sports like in the X Games, or uh, when we were watching just random shows like Rocket Power and uh, movies like Johnny Tsunami, just seeing other people that might look like us interacting in these sports. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's attracted us to that.
Nice. And yeah, what was the first skiing experience? Right.
We went to a small hill called Ski Sundown in Connecticut, and yeah, it was me, my brother, and a mutual friend, and we just wanted to try it out. And of course, the first time you try anything, we weren't really that good, but um, it was kind of a big spark to keep trying. Was in a ski school lesson, didn't really work out, so we dipped from that, and then Saw another, coincidentally saw another skier with one leg while I was just lying in the snow for a second, and he came up to me and said, "Keep going," and then he skied off, and it was kind of like a divine intervention almost. It was like very serendipitous that happened. And after that I started looking up what equipment he was using. He was using what we call outriggers in the adaptive sports world.
Mm-hmm.
And started looking that up and slowly convincing my parents to help me buy those. So yeah, it was kind of a cool spark in my life.
And did you have them when you first did it? Like how did that work? Like did you have outriggers when you kind of
No,
first
I just was using my forearm crutches that I
okay.
usually use. And I mean, it was working for as good as it could, but ideally there's equipment out there that makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, didn't have that just yet.
Yeah. And then what was all that quick was it sort of like custom made? Like so when you like when you talk to your parents, when you try to convince them to get the stuff, like or was there kind of something that was already out there?
There was
Like what the like what the person was using, right? Like
yeah. So there's something that's already out there, and it's a company based out of Colorado, Enabling Technologies, and still making pretty similar stuff on that end. But it was an adjustable outrigger to my height, so I could adjust it as I grew throughout the years. So that was very nice. Yeah, but slightly expensive, more expensive definitely than ski poles.
yeah.
So it was definitely tricky to convince.
Yeah, but I mean, sort of, they could see the passion was there, right? So they kind of were they like,
Sometimes I don't know. I mean, I like all kinds of sports. I think people are starting to realize that. I'm in on the U.S. amputee soccer team, and I skateboard and I trail run and bike and skiing, of course, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. They definitely had hesitations before. They never expected it to go this far, of course. So definitely unexpected, I'd say.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like with those different sports, I mean, would you sort of say that it would just depend on the different seasons, and you sort of look at it going, like obviously in winter, uh, when you can go skiing, that would be something that you would sort of focus on, and then at different times, like with the trail running, um, yeah, I'm super. Like I've just been getting into trail running recently. It's sort of like, has this been something that I don't know, like last couple of years, and just getting more and more into it. I was just sort of wondering if like how you kind of structure it, where you sort of split
No,
the
I mean
time.
I love my seasons. Growing up on the East Coast, it was very seasonal from winter, spring, summer, fall. So yeah, I very much enjoyed that. And most of the summer and warmer seasons, I would mostly focus on soccer and
Okay,
playing soccer as much as possible. But the running aspect was definitely a big part of it. I actually just only started trail running like maybe 5 years ago or
okay,
so. Maybe 4 years ago now. But yeah, similar feeling, the runner's high kind of thing, and being able to just be out there, moving a little bit faster with lighter weight. But yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, just a combination of all the sports. It's what kind of keeps me going a little bit. I
yeah,
like the changing it up season by season, not getting stuck on anything, one stuck on one thing.
yeah.
Hmm.
And like you went to you went to university over in Vermont, didn't you? And like, was that sort of, would you say like you're kind of exposed to kind of more like more sports and more things kind of there, or
Yeah, definitely. I would say, taking part in the UVM ski club and the UVM outing club, connecting with people that were interested in getting out more and open to helping me create more equipment to be able to do so as well. So that was really cool. Definitely very impactful in my life as well.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a space where I was learning how to be more active in the outdoors.
And was that where was that when you kind of got into backcountry skiing and that sort of that whole started?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, skiing in the Green Mountains, skiing in the White Mountains, and skiing in Adirondacks, and going up to northern Quebec and the Chic-Chocs. So all those spaces definitely helped. And then, setting our eyes, a bunch of me and my friends setting our eyes to the west, and then eventually moving out to Bozeman. So yeah, it was quite the progression, I'd say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And how did you do it with the equipment? Like kind of going like off track and
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a process. There was definitely iterations of how I wanted to ski tour. Saw an individual online that was hiking up a mountain with like these little baskets he had made for his outriggers. Tried to make those. Those broke pretty quickly. Then I put skins on the bottom of my outriggers. Those worked for the most part, only on harder snow conditions. And
okay.
then once it was powder, it was definitely more difficult. So then I went back to the drawing board with a few friends at the outing club and made these snowshoe baskets that attach to the bottom, and I've been using pretty much the same ones ever since.
And were you guys so we doing like trial and error and sort of just testing it out and
Yeah,
sort
for the
of
most part. I mean, that's the thing about adaptive equipment is every disability has their own different needs and to get out, and different mobility aspects that impact that. So um, yeah, it was definitely a big trial and error process, and um, if one thing didn't hit, we'd go back and try to figure something out that worked better. And yeah, it was definitely a process over years.
yeah.
Hmm.
And that's sort of then what became known as your ninja sticks, right? I've kind of heard you said
Yeah,
when like kids come up to you, you sort of tell them like that's kind of
yeah. Ninja sticks are definitely like both either my forearm crutches or my ski outriggers. But then like ninja sticking itself is a different kind of ideology. So yeah, it's kind of it's a funny way that we brought up that word.
yeah. Like how did like so what's the like with the ideology? I mean, like what's behind
Uh,
that?
yeah, so when I moved to Bozeman, I got invited to go ski or go climb the Grand Teton with Paradox Sports, an organization based out of Colorado that works in adaptive climbing. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was invited to climb the Grand Teton. And on that climb, my friend and who was guiding me and supporting me, Mike Gardner, was watching me go up. And there's a section called Wall Street, and it's kind of like maybe the width of a desk. And we were walking on it, and he was watching me place my forearm crutches, on the edge of this 2,000 foot, cliff, pretty much, and um, just came up with like, oh man, you look like you're like ninja sticking up here, just like very precise and placing of your crutches and moving them pretty fast, faster than most other people would move them. So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be, and I held to that, and now it kind of is this ideology where it's to destigmatize disability in a way and bring some levity to the conversation, into these heavier conversations that many people might have a hard time talking about. So
Yeah.
especially medical equipment, and especially disability, and yeah, so that's kind of the idea, is to just bring a little bit more fun, I guess, to it. And um, yeah, and every time I tell kids that these are my ninja sticks, they kind of like spark up and want to try to use them or something. So yeah,
They just grab them off you. Like,
I mean, they like ask, and they're like, "Can
yeah.
I try them?" Or like, so yeah, it's definitely a cool way to like break the ice a little bit.
Yeah. And with kind of yeah, I mean like looking at the stigma of everything and like I mean you've kind of been involved with organizations for quite a while, right? And sort of like bringing the conversation open to like talking about it
Yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah, I'm not as many people might know me as. I don't really bite my tongue. I find joy in dissenting um, heavily, and trying to disrupt some of the status quo.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my thing. within the past, like maybe half decade or so, as I started learning more and more about how people with disabilities and people of color have been impacted in our country. So, yeah, just trying to, and of course, other marginalized communities as well. So, yeah, just trying to voice my concerns and perspectives through what I've learned and through my lived experience, so others can kind of learn and join in the movements to make, again, the world a better, more empathetic place is kind
Yeah.
of the goal.
And were you sort of using your voice? I mean, like, was that like then like working with brands as well as like non-for-profits and within the sort of outdoor space and within the outdoor and sort of adventure community, right? Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of all around. I kind of just created my own values that I wanted to stick to in any relationship that I build. So, yeah, it's definitely something I've stayed grounded with, whether it is a company or a nonprofit or the next person that I meet. Yeah, just try to make sure that my values are being aligned in that way.
Yeah. And how have you kind of felt that it's sort of evolved? Like I guess, like since when you were a kid and then like now?
Just building a better focus on what I want to, spend most of my time with, and who, again, who I want to represent, and yeah, it's just been a very, just trying to focus because of all the things that I tried to, fight for is, it's pretty broad sometimes, but it's building that focus and compartmentalizing that a little bit helps me, um, be a little bit more uh, effective or more powerful with my voice, to say the
Yeah.
least. Mm-hmm.
And that would be then sort of like, not just who you work with, but like then like what kind of projects you take on and everything like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, with the approach, like knowing that it was trying to disrupt the current narrative in the industry, or, working with North Face or Faction or whoever, who are, definitely trying to highlight diversity in a lot of different ways. So yeah, all these different standards that I hold myself to, and then hold the relationships that I'm with too as well.
Yeah.
So, and try to vocalize that as much as possible throughout the, you know, um, through that building process between the two parties.
Nice. And can you tell us more about the film that came out last year, Ascend? So that was by North Face, and that was kind of, yeah, like reframing disability, right, within outdoors, would you say? And
Yeah, totally. So that's the title, Ascend: Reframing Disability Outdoors, and it was, I had a part to say in it, when it came to where the support was going to go afterwards, or providing land acknowledgments, pronouns, and all that kind of stuff when highlighting the athletes and the land that we were on. And then also just focusing on like what it means to be a minority in the outdoors. So it was, in front of the lens, it was myself, my close friend Emily, Zenobia, and then another friend of mine who was quote unquote the guide, but he quickly realized he didn't really need to guide us, Zahan Bilmoria. So all of us people of color, all of us, change makers in the industry, being vocal and sharing different perspectives in the specifically the snow sports world and beyond, I'd say. And, just trying to share a little bit about that perspective more so, and yeah, how we move in the mountains and how we view the land that we're on.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, nice. And yeah, do you feel that it is changing within the snow sports kind of landscape?
Yeah, I'd say, the outdoor industry as a whole is changing a little faster than the snow sports industry. The snow sports industry is still lagging behind. It's still majority white populations, especially given, the locations and these mountain towns that are also predominantly white and homogenous. So just it is taking a process. There are great films out there that are exemplifying that, but yeah, it is. There's still a lot more that needs to be done to try to normalize diversity in the snow sports scene.
And what do you reckon? Like, what do you reckon can be done? Like, how, like.
I mean, there's so much more. I mean, representation on all levels, whether it's media or athletes or marketing or CEOs, all that kind of stuff. Board members need to be done, creating pipelines for the next generation to be able to take part in these sports and into these leadership opportunities.
Yeah.
Changing up their language, you know, standing up or fighting for the many atrocities that are happening in our country as a company, which they totally can. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that will help support a lot of different historically excluded communities. There has to be some intention behind it and some strategy behind it to make sure that these companies are fighting for a just future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working like, well, you've got a few organizations which you help co-found, right? Which is like Outdoor F.U.T.U.R.E and
Mm-hmm. So I'm a founding member, core member for the Outdoor F.U.T.U.R.E Initiative, and that's more of a federal policy that we're trying to create to redistribute federal resources and money towards historically excluded communities again, primarily urban, rural, and tribal communities from ethnically and racially diverse spaces. So all intersections. So the gender spectrum and the disability ability spectrum as well included in that. That doesn't go unsaid in our work. And then also founded Inclusive Outdoors Project, is trying to build that bridge between mountain sports and, again, historically excluded communities, which include the adaptive or disabled communities, the LGBTQ plus communities, and the BIPOC and racially and ethnically diverse communities as well. So trying to create more representation and more programming for those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit going on with all that, and then obviously being a professional athlete as well. And
but all of it again falls into my values, my core values. The three of them are community, land, and joy, and always trying to uplift my community as I am being uplifted by my community. So it's kind of a parallel process there for me. There's a quote of lift as I climb, and that's kind of just what I'm focusing on, is lifting my community as I climb with my community as well. So and then focusing on that land side, making sure we're protecting the land and spaces we're on, but also making sure we highlight the original stewards of those lands, of these lands, and then first and foremost, centering joy as much as possible. Disabled joy, brown, black joy, native joy, and queer joy as well. So trying to just make sure that all three of those are in the forefront whenever I'm creating these relationships or creating these movements or organizations or programming, or you name it.
Yeah. And would you say, is it kind of like trying to balance all those three things at the same time, or sort of like one, depending on what it is, kind of takes precedence?
No, I don't think. I mean, it is balancing. It's one doesn't go without the other, I'd say. So once the relationship aligned to all three, that's where I kind of try to be as well. So there's not one without the other kind of thing. Yeah. And that's kind of where my actions are based as well, is in all three of those. Mm-hmm.
Nice one. And what do you have coming up? Like what's happening later this year? And
I just have a few projects that are in the works right now. Nothing to finalize.
Anything that you can talk about, or is it sort of?
I mean, I totally can. These are just ambitious goals of mine, and the second approach, we're hoping to launch in the fall and create a smaller film circuit with that, and
Nice.
share that with film festivals as well. So that's we're looking forward to, highlighting what we did in Alaska this year, and sharing what Brooklyn and Emily were able to do as Black women in the industry, being on Alaskan Spines, probably for the first time as a Black person, or a Black woman for sure. So being able to showcase that, being like some of the first adaptive athletes myself to ski Alaskan Spines. So, but not in that case, but more so just opening doors for others to be able to view these as opportunities for themselves as well.
Yeah.
Again, that lift as we climb mentality. That's a big one that'll be a focus in the fall, and try to share that film a little bit more. And then just trying to promote and push different ideas. I want to try to ski Mont Blanc
Nice.
next year. It was supposed to be this year in May, but Chamonix in France didn't have the best ski year. So trying to do that before climate change has a bigger impact on the snow sports community, where many of these mountains are going to be untouchable. And then, I mean, there's a few other ideas in the mix, but nothing too big. Just kind of planting some seeds right now with it all. Mm-hmm.
And any other mountains that have kind of that you want to discover? Like Mont Blanc that you want to kind of ski down and.
Yeah, I mean, none of these have all been kind of quote unquote discovered, but trying to definitely again expand the narrative about what access means and what disability means and what adaptive sports means. So trying to ski potentially all 7 of the summits, but that won't happen this year. That'll happen within a decade, so that's going to take a minute. And then just trying to publicize that a little bit more as I start building that.
Cool. And what about on the other sports? So you kind of like looked at anything for trail running, or if you kind of like do you set any goals for any of these different things?
So I ran the Rut last year, which is a bigger run in Montana, pretty big event, massive event, but might start connecting with the UTMB folks, given that North Face has pretty strong connections there. So maybe do something there. Trail running, I'm kind of weeding myself out of, just because of how impactful it is on my body physically.
What sort of distances are you doing, like, or have you done?
The most I've done is 32 miles, I want to say. But a lot of the times it's short runs from. I don't really like a mile run. That's kind of where I feel warmed up. But starting at like 2 miles to 26 miles or 30 miles in between that, mountain marathons and whatnot. Especially being in Montana, there's a ton of trails just within driving distance, very close driving distance. So pretty cool to make all these connectors and loops and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And so I mean, like, what's the best way? Like, if people want to follow, if they want to follow what you're up to, and if they can kind of sort of look within these communities, how can they support? How can they get involved? And
so you can check out Outdoor F.U.T.U.R.E Initiative, which is at Outdoor F.U.T.U.R.E on Instagram, and then Inclusive Outdoors Project, which is at Inclusive Outdoors Project on Instagram. We're mostly Instagram heavy, and then myself in the work that I do is my name at Vasu _Sojitra, and that's kind of just where I'm the most vocal when it comes to forward-facing stuff, and then I also do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. So connecting through that, if you want to work with me when it comes to building strategies to be a more inclusive and accessible community, that's kind of what I work on as well behind the scenes.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Oh, Vasu, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time, and yeah, we're definitely going to be following what you're up to.
Yeah,
And yeah, we'll stay in
appreciate it.
touch.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks, man.